What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and in this video, we're doing something that I swore to myself I wouldn't do. I said that I was going to stay away from the Sword and Shield alt art space for a couple weeks simply because everything is getting a little crazy right now. I want things to calm down a little bit before I give any more opinions or thoughts or before I do any more analysis in that space. But guess what? Best laid plans are sometimes changed, and last night on my flight home, it was delayed for 3 hours. So I did what any grown middle-aged man would do when they have 3 hours of extra time in the airport. I dug deep into Pokemon data and I had an absolute blast. Now, what I wanted to do was I wanted to look at these alt arts with these crazy valuations and try and understand, are there any out there, any hidden gems that still have some great opportunity for growth in the long run? And I did it by doing a couple of different things. I'm going to look at some PSA prices, right? I'm going to look at the 1 year chart from TCG Player. I'm going to look at the chart which shows the price of these cards ever since they came out. You'll see the Pokemon Pop and Flop. You'll see for the first year or 2 years of price data, and I get that from Pokedata.io. So we're going to be looking at these things in its totality, right? We're going to look at it from a macro level view. And what was really interesting to me is some of these cards that I thought had these incredibly high valuations or way above 1 year highs, they actually aren't priced that crazy. They just aren't compared to where they've been in the past. And so that was a really big takeaway for me. And unless I had found those 3 extra hours and unless I'd done this type of data dive, I never would have realized that. Now listen, you're not going to see the biggest names. You're not going to see the baddest cards. You're not going to see the most epic artwork when we go through this. Some of them are, but some of them aren't, because I am looking for value. And I do think in the long run, Sword and Shield alt arts have a very bright future. I think that these cards are absolute amazing cards. I think the artwork is next level. I think it's got this mystical kind of aura about it, and I just think that they have a very bright future. So as I go through this, don't expect the Lugias, don't expect, the Aerodactyls, don't expect any of the cards you see here on this page, but expect to see some cards that maybe aren't getting all of the love that they should and have shown some strong promise in the past. So with that being said, before we get into the data deep dives, if you start watching this and you enjoy this type of content, this type of data analysis, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. Those 3 small things go a long way in helping me out. And I appreciate it more than I can say. So with that out of the way, let's start jumping into some of these awesome cards. And I had to start off with this one right here. So this Origin Form Dialga from Astral Radiance. I do think that Astral Radiance is a underloved set right now as a whole. When I started to take a step back and look at all of the awesome cards that are in here, I think this set is going to be a surpriser. I think, it gets lost in the Lost Origins, it gets lost in the Brilliant Stars and the Evolving Skies and the Fusion Strikes and the Chilling Rains. But Astral Radiance really has a strong lineup, and I love the artwork on this card. Now, this was one of the ones where I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, it is up $10. It is up 25% over its last high, which was about $40 all the way back 1 year ago. And now it's sitting at $50. So I thought, hey, this card is way overvalued. But guess what? When you look at this, of course, this down below is the Pokedata.io chart. You'll see when this card first came out, it was all the way up in the $110, $120 range. But then if you look at that graph, okay, from 2022 in like October, November, December, January, through that period of time, this card really held its water in the $50 to $40 price range for about 6 to 7 months. So I loved seeing that. And then if you all remember, we went through a period of softening, right? Even the Sword and Shield alt arts, none of them were safe. These cards all started to come back down. Well, now this card is obviously starting to grow. It's at $50, but that $50 price point isn't unapproachable compared to where it's been in the past. And that is one of the reasons why I think this card has some serious growth about it. I will tell you this, that the excitement, the energy, the focus, the love for these alt arts now compared to back where it was towards the end of 2022, beginning of 2023 is at an all-time high. The interest is there, the excitement is there. Does that mean that this thing is going to pop off overnight? Absolutely not. But I do think that this is going to level for a little bit, and then I think that it could actually have some room for growth in the future. This is one of the top 5 cards from Astral Radiance. I think Astral Radiance is an unloved set, and I think this card has a bright future. Just look at the artwork on that. The artwork on that is absolutely stunning. That alone is enough to make me say, maybe, I don't know when, but maybe this could be a $100 card in the future or an $80 card in the future, because I think it's got a big name in Dialga. It's got some awesome art. It's an alt art. It's from Sword and Shield. I mean, check, top to bottom. Love this card, and I actually think it might have some upside. Now, Next one I'm looking at right here, remember I said it's not going to be the baddest start, it's not going to be the biggest names, but this Blissey V from Chilling Reign. So Chilling Reign obviously is a wildly popular Sword and Shield set. It has more cards over $20 than any other set except Evolving Skies. The average of the top 20 cards is higher than any other set except Evolving Skies. Chilling Reign has all kinds of awesome momentum right now. Now this Blissey card, in terms of all of the artworks that are in the set, this one is a little bit below standard. This one is a little bit lower in price compared to a lot of the ones on there. So when you look at the one-year chart up there from TCG Player, you'll see that it is pretty much flat. It is about $1 over its one-year high. It dropped really hard, it flattened out, but then just as hard as it dropped, it popped right back up. But one of the things that I like is if you look at that total graph down there from Polkadata.io, it came out and Pokemon Pop and flopped as high as $45. Then it dropped as low as $20. But look, it held at $30 for a very long time. I like seeing cards like this where later on into their life cycle, the market loved it so much that it was already at $30. So yes, it's close to the $30 mark now. But again, as I said on the last slide, I think the interest, I think the excitement, I think the demand for alt arts now is at an all-time high. And I think that just because we've seen a high of $30 in the past doesn't mean that that's the ceiling. I think the ceiling is much higher. So listen, is this the best artwork in the world for me? I don't think so. Is this the biggest name in the world? I think all of us would agree. Probably not. But does it check enough of the boxes for me to say, hey, listen, I think this one might have some room to run? Absolutely. Chilling Reign is fire. Alt arts in general are fire. I love the fact that this has had a really established high prior to this. So I am all in. I think this is a really awesome card and certainly worth some considerations. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out further down the road. Now, next one right here is this Noivern card, okay? I love Evolving Skies. I love everything in Evolving Skies. I think it is an absolute epic set. One of the things that I've noticed about this is I've been comparing Evolving Skies to Team Up a bit. Now, I don't think that you really can. I think Team Up is in a whole different league all in of itself, but Evolving Skies is starting to perform very Team Up-esque. And one of the things that I've noticed is the average of the top 20 cards from a price perspective for Evolving Skies is just slightly higher, but right in line with the average of the top 20 cards from Team Up. The difference is it is more evenly spread across in Team Up versus Evolving Skies. Evolving Skies, you got the Ray, you got the Moonbryon, right? You've got those two cards up there, which is really pulling the average up. I wouldn't be surprised if in time we see those cards start to normalize, start to come back down a little bit in price, and some of the lower alt arts like this from the Evolving Skies set actually start to spike up. So this is one right here where you'll see it has grown aggressively over the last month. I am not the only person who thinks that this card is very, very awesome and has some upside, right? You'll see it was about $32 a year ago. Now it's sitting at $37.82. But again, when you look at the overall price graph, when you look at how it has performed ever since Evolving Skies came out, it went through the Pokemon Pop and flop, it came back up, it came back down. It is now just starting to get to that what I would consider a true all-time high list. And the other thing I really like about this card is this right here. Look how the PSA 10 price is starting to distance itself from the raw card price. Usually, not always, but usually when we see the Pokemon PSA 10 prices start to gain aggressively, the raw card prices are going to go up with it, right? Because the market is going to say, hey, listen, these PSA 10s are going for $130 now, where a couple months ago they were only going for $80 or $90. That drives people interest in the raw cards because a lot of us out there, myself included, sometimes I try and buy raw, send them PSA, get them graded. So I think when you see this big of a divergence between the PSA 10 price rising and the raw card staying the same, that is like an indicator to me that I do think that the raw card price is going to continue to go up. So I thought this was a really cool one to call out and a really interesting one for us to look at. Now, next one right here, I've talked about this card a lot in the past. I love everything about Fusion Strike. You know that. I love the artwork on this card. I think this is absolute fire. And the fact that it is still sub $20 is crazy to me. Now, look at that one-year price graph. Look at how aggressively this was working its way down all the way till April of 2024. And then it just shot up through the roof, and now it is starting to flatten out a little bit. But this is another one where if you look back, again, go back on that chart on the bottom from Polkadata.io, you will see that this has held steady for a long period of time in that high $20, low $30 range before it went through that normal market cycle where things started to cool off in the Sword and Shield space. So the fact that it's at $18.78 right now, but the market held at $30 not long ago is another big, big upside for me. And then just like we saw in the last card, look at this. the PSA 10 prices are absolutely popping off compared to the raw card price, right? I mean, PSA 10s are going for over $120 right now, and you can pick this card up for sub 20. That is a huge ratio between PSA 10 price and raw card price. I have a very strong feeling that we will start to see some of the raw card prices of this one start creeping their way back up because those PSA 10s are going for such high numbers. And I wouldn't be surprised if those PSA 10s continue to climb. When we looked at the population report of this card in a PSA 10 last time we featured it in a video, it wasn't that high. It was in like the 2,000-3,000 range. And when you compare that to some of the peers that are in the $6,000-$7,000 or 7,000 population range, that's just not a big number. So really cool card. I thought this was a great call out, and I thought it was really interesting because I have been in love with this card for quite a while. Now, the next one right here, Origin Form Palkia, I had to include. I really didn't want to do 2 cards from one set. I thought it'd be really cool if I just highlighted 5 different cards and then from 5 different sets, but this card checked all the boxes and I really wanted to have it on there. Now, the thing I like about this is you see that V pattern in the 1-year graph right there. 1 year ago, this was a $40 card. It's at $43 right now, so it's really just starting to eclipse that 1-year high, but it's another one where you look at that 1-year graph down there. I mean, when this came out, this one was actually priced higher than the Dialga when it first came out, right? This was a $150 card. Really steep decline there, but then again, another one that held in that $40 to $50 range for a long time. I love the Palkia. I love the Dialga. I think both of these are obviously huge name Pokemon. They're coming from Astral Radiance, which is a great set in the Sword and Shield block. I just think these cards have a lot of upside, and I think when we look at just the 1-year graph, it's not telling us the whole story. I think we really have to blow it up and look at a much longer time frame like this. The other thing, as we've seen in the last 2, right, the video has a little bit of a pattern to it. As we've seen in the last 2, guess what's happening? Not quite as aggressive as the other 2, but we are seeing those PSA 10s really start to pop off in value, right? The PSA 10s are now in the $140 range, right? And this is a $40 raw card. So I do think that as long as the PSA 10 value continues to go up, I do think these raw cards will come up as well. Now, I always say I'm going to do 5 cards or 5 boxes or 5 investment things. And guess what? I always end up doing 6 because that's just the way I'm wired. Now, this final card, it is not an alt art, but you know what? I've talked about it a lot, and I am very excited to see this card finally starting to make some moves. If you go back, if you watch some of the videos that we did, when this card got down to the $100 range, we said, listen, this might not be a $200, $300, $400 alt art type card, but we did think that there was some upside. We saw the market supported a whole lot at the $100 range. We said, hey, listen, once Vivid Voltage sells out on the Pokemon Center, I think then we'll get some idea of what this card is capable of. I do think its wings are clipped just a little bit because it went through that pandemic pump, because Vivid Voltage was absolutely printed into the ground. So I do think that it's going to limit its upside a little bit. There's over 7,000 of these in PSA 10 holders right now, so of course that's going to limit its overall growth potential, but I think that this card just is going to hold a special memory in a lot of people's hearts and minds, right? Like, this card was, again, as I said, at the peak of the pandemic, this was the big chase card. I mean, look at that. The raw card price was at $400. There were examples of this in PSA 10 holders when they first hit the market that were going for over $1,000. That is absolutely Looney Tunes. So I think that there's some upside here. I think that the market is, I think that the value is going to be capped at a certain degree simply because the population is so high. Rainbow cards aren't all the rage, and Pikachu, Chunkachu, not a lot of people love it. So who knows what's going to happen, but I will say this. We have seen about a 20% increase in a short amount of time. We saw the $100 market hit. That's that nice round number we talk about all the time. The market soaked it up at $100, and now that Vivid Voltage is out of stock, guess what? We're starting to see it pop back up. So this is going to be one that I think is going to hold a lot of special memories, and I'm really excited to see how this performs in the long run. So hey, listen, these are 5/6 cards that I think still have some upside in them. I hope that the analysis gave you some value. I hope you thought that this was a pretty cool take on it. And if you did and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. It's a little thing, goes a long way in making me happy. If you enjoyed the content, give us a thumbs up. And if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an epic one, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later, everybody. Bye.